Hello, I'm Robert, a fact checker and science blogger and helping people who are scared of many things. And in this case, these people are scared that Saturn and Jupiter are somehow going to cause 3 days of darkness on Earth. So I hope this diagram can help you see how it's impossible. So Saturn and Jupiter are the far side of the Sun. And you don't really see the scales so it's very hard to actually convey how far away they are. If you take a distance from Earth to the Sun, which is very, very, very far, it's a couple of decades travel at the speed of a 747 that could go around the world in a couple of days. The Sun is very, very far away. And then Jupiter is even further away than that. And the distance from Sun to Jupiter is far more than the distance from Earth to the Sun. And the distance from Jupiter to Saturn is far more also than the distance from Earth to the Sun. So they are nowhere near each other. That gives you the vast scale. We're looking across the whole solar system, vast, vast distance. And these can never, at any time, ever come between the Earth and the Sun. Because when they're this side, then they're way, way behind us. Far, far distance in Earth's distance, because they're always a vast distance away from the Sun. And they can never pass in between Earth and the Sun at any point. Never. In the entire history of the solar system, they have never passed between the Earth and the Sun. They can't do that. So Saturn and Jupiter can never cause even the smallest shadow. It's totally impossible. So the people who say this, then they don't understand the most basic things in astronomy. And then the moon can cause a shadow on Earth, but only this moon is much smaller than the Sun. The Sun is absolutely huge. The moon is much smaller, and it's like if you have your finger and you hold it in front of something, have it very close to your eye, you can block out something even very big. In the same way, if the moon is very close, if you're just below the moon, then the moon, even though it's much smaller than the Sun, can block it out. But sometimes the moon is a bit too far away and you see the Sun all the way around the moon. And in that situation they can't block it out. But when it's a bit closer, because it's got an elliptical orbit, and sometimes it's closer and sometimes it's further away, if it happens to be close to Earth, at the same time it's in front of the Sun, then it can block out the Sun, but only for a tiny spot. Only if you're just there is the moon between you and the Sun. If you're somewhere else, it's not. You can see around it, and that's what's called a partial eclipse. And so the moon can never block out the Sun for more than a few minutes, because it's gradually moving in front of the Sun, and its shadow moves very fast across the surface of Earth. The shadow of the moon, the tiny shadow of the moon, is much smaller than the moon itself, and the moon is smaller than Earth, and the shadow of the moon, by the time we get to Earth, is much smaller than the moon. That shadow travels across the surface of the Earth at supersonic speed. You would need something like Concorde to keep up with it. So you're there, and the shadow passes you for just a few minutes, and then it's gone. And someone else sees the shadow for a bit, someone else sees the shadow for a bit, and then it's gone completely, and that's it. The end of the eclipse. So the moon also can never cause a shadow anywhere on Earth that lasts more than a few minutes. So this whole 3 days of darkness can never happen under any circumstances. It is an enigmatic puzzle. It's an enigmatic passage in the Bible, where there's a passage about 3 days of darkness. Nobody knows what it means. It doesn't mean anything astronomical. It just can't happen. So please don't ever be scared of these 3 days of darkness things. And the people, they just make up tall tales. They might say something like, if a ladybird flaps its wing, then the moon is going to turn into a pumpkin. Something like that. It's as absurd as that. There's no basis for it. And so please also learn from this that there are thousands of people online who just go online and they bullshit. They say things, they know nothing about the topic they're talking about. They just open their mouth and words come out, and they just say whatever fantastical thing springs to their mind, and then they present it and they say, this is my wisdom that I'm giving to the world, that there are going to be 3 days of darkness, and they don't know anything. They're just talking. They're just trying to be impressive. often they don't even care if what they say is true or not. They're just trying to be impressive and trying to get lots of clicks and views, and they hope that their video will go viral. And you don't really just pay no attention to these people. They don't know what they're talking about, and there's nothing to worry about at all. It will be a very lovely sight. You need if you can get especially with a friend with a telescope, then if you can get them to show it through your telescope, and if you have clear nights, then it would be a rather lovely sight to see. And even with binoculars, then just to see the bright Jupiter and Saturn, you see the moons of Jupiter as well, then that's something quite nice to see in binoculars if you get a clear night. But you can only see it for it's about 45 minutes after sunset, because that's the only time that you can see it. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. And so I recommend, if you want to see this, then try following Jupiter and Saturn already. And you can buy an app called Sky Safari Pro for your mobile phone. Then you hold that up, and you look at this. It'll show you the video feed, just like if you were going to take a video, and then it'll show you the planets in the video, and you can just look at it. And it could also be quite fun to try and see Jupiter and Saturn in the daytime. If you have a very clear blue sky in daytime, you can sometimes see them in daytime, but you would have to be very careful to block out the sun. So, because they'll be quite close to the sun, make sure that you're in the shadow, and then you may find that you're in the shadow. You can, if you've got position in the shadow, just position yourself just right, so the sun is blocked out. Then, if you look very carefully, it will show you where it is in the sky. And if you look very carefully, you can see just the faintest white specks of light. And that's what a planet looks like in daytime. It's the same brightness as the sky, but it's white instead of blue. So it's quite difficult to pick out. That's quite a fun thing you can do as well. But then, when you can only really see them clearly once the sun sets. And once the sun is below the horizon, you've got these 45 minutes to see it before Saturn and Jupiter set as well. And then it's night, and then then the next morning the sun will rise a little bit after Saturn and Jupiter, but you can't see them unless you go into shadow and do this trick. We're trying to see the tiny dots of brightness against the blue sky with Sky Safari Core. If you've got a clear night, clear day, no clouds, and good sky conditions, then you can see it. You can see them, and then, so you can try that. But for seeing it in the evening, you'll need a clear horizon in whatever direction they are, because they're quite close to the horizon. And as they dip down lower as it gets darker, so the darker it gets, the closer they are to the horizon, the easier to see. So you want to find a place with a lower horizon in the direction that they are. Which, if you're far north in the middle of winter like I am, then it'll be quite near, just south, between southwest somewhere, way down there. And in my case, I would have to climb a hill to see it from here, because I've got a hill in between. I don't think I might be able to see it, but I'm very unlikely to have a clear night anyway. And but if you're lucky enough, so I suggest looking for a few weeks beforehand and a few days beforehand. Just go up. You see that they're gradually getting closer to each other in the sky before the setting sun. Every evening you will see Saturn and Jupiter a little bit closer, so you can see the planets long before you can see them now. They're easier to see, in fact, now than they will be then. And on the 16th and the 17th, there's you can actually spot them using the if I can bring up the Earth sky thing. Maybe I'll just quickly do that. Do they have a bit about that? I'm sure they have something about that. So go and look for the December. Yeah, that's December the 16th. So that's just a couple of days, or is it? I can't remember what date it is. If you look in the southwest, this depends where you are. You see Jupiter and Saturn close together, and you see the crescent moon, a waxing crescent moon, and it'd be quite close above that on the 16th. You also get a chance to see them on the 17th, close to the waxing moon. So I suggest you let's have a look at that on the 16th, and that's an opportunity to see the planets and to find them, because they'd be quite near to the moon. And so, and then once you've found them, then try to follow them from time to time. Just go and look out for them in the evening, and then you'll be all ready to spot them when you get to the 21st, when they'll be so close together, to naked eye they look like a single star. With binoculars you separate them, and with a small telescope you should have a lovely view of them. But if you can't see them, I'm sure there'll be lots of photographs. So, anyway, please don't be scared of this thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a lovely thing. There's nothing scary about it at all. It's a very lovely thing. And so I hope this helps some of you.